What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fact versus Fiction podcast. I'm your host, Broke Boy James.
And I'm your host, Shy. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell.
Yeah, and if you don't, you weak. All right, so we're gonna get right into it. Today's episode is gonna be a little bit different. I'm about to take you guys back to the days before equality, to the days before oppression, segregation, discrimination, a-
Prejudiced people.
all of that. All right, so for the people who think they are quote unquote depressed or oppressed and all of these, sorry, hate to break it to you. You living free right now. A lot of these words, right? These are words we know every
hmm
day. We use them. The left use them a lot, and they are very uh I don't want to say they're interchangeable, but also misunderstood at the same time, if you know what I mean. So we have racism, racist, prejudice, discrimination, and antagonism. All right. So racism, prejudice, discrimination. Damn. you know, racism, prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular radical or ethnic group. All right. We have racist, characterized by showing prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism against a person or people on a basis of their membership or particular radical or ethnic group. Prejudice, preconceived opinion that is not based on a reason or actual experience, a dislike, hostility, or unjust behavior to a person or people of an ethnic group. Discrimination, the unjust or prejudicial treatment or different categories, ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. Antagonism, active hostility or oppression. Shy,
hmm
can you break these down for me, for
Right.
us?
Racism. Um, it's more on the color of your skin, your culture. Um, it's more on that side. That's what you're being judged off your culture or the color of your skin. That's what we know racism to be.
Hmm.
Yeah, it could be from
Show
like
racism.
it could be like a higher up person or like a group of people
Yeah.
like that has like like I say a white Caucasian owned business would most likely be racist towards like a black person trying to work for them. Like
Yep. And then that leads into the racist category,
yeah.
showing prejudice, discrimination just because of the color of your skin or however old you are, whatever.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what a racist is. Like prejudice is often misconstrued with racism or with being a racist. All right,
But it's
so
kind of not. It's off of okay, I don't know nothing about you, but I'm going to judge you because that's what I saw on TV.
yeah, that's why I said it's pretty much off the basis. Like that's why it's misconstrued.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't understand. Like they might hear something like a stereotype about a certain group of people and think that's how they act. So they automatically in their mind when they see that person, they're gonna treat them bad.
Yeah.
All right. So and then we have discrimination, very point and shoot like a camera.
Anybody can be discriminated by. It could be a woman, it could be a man, it could be a child, it could be somebody with
You could be
disability.
old, you could be young.
So it
Yep,
doesn't have to necessarily be with race.
exactly. And then antagonism is pretty much shit, man. I mean, on the basis of you being in a DV situation.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
pretty much.
I want to share a little story with y'all before we get into this. All right. So back in the day when I was a youngin, yeah, I used to be young.
Mm.
I used to be able to bend down and my bones wouldn't pop.
It's the sound effect.
I used to be able to wake up in the morning and I hear.
Mm.
Now I'm 26, but I feel like I'm 66.
Oh wow.
Mm.
I'm 21 and I feel like I'm like 25.
But no, seriously, seriously. All right. So back when I was like 19, right? I was working at this job. It was a warehouse, and this person had came in, and like this is like, I worked at night shift, so at this point, there's like I'm working in the back.
That's what you do in the warehouse.
I know, but it's like, I mean, for this, it's just, what are the odds? But no, I'm working in the back, typically helping my coworkers either stack boxes or I'm doing my own thing that I gotta do, right? But this person comes in from the back because he was a driver or whatever, and I think he was knocking on the door. I couldn't remember too well or whatever, but he was like knocking on the door and comes in. He's walking around, and I see this person, and I'm looking at him because like I'm like, he doesn't work here. How'd you get in here? Because like the door at this time is supposed to be locked. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, my first instinct was like, oh snap, he about to blow us up. The only reason why I thought this was because he was brown skinned. He had on like his robe because he was Middle Eastern, like Muslim. So when you think of that, like when you think of somebody who's brown skinned, Middle Eastern, and Muslim, you're gonna think of automatically 9/11. And like when I thought that, I was kind of like, dang, that's kind of like messed up because like that was kind of like instilled into us after that happened. And
Yeah.
like if like a lot of people from, in the States are gonna assume like Muslims are, terrorists, but they're really not. They're like
Yeah, they're
great
not.
people, they're
They are.
awesome.
I have family that's Muslim, so yeah, they are
And
very good people.
but I mean also at the same time, most of the people who are terrorists happen to be white, and it's most of the terrorist acts that happen to be domestic terrorism. So just to put that out there, yeah, you got anything?
No.
We're gonna go ahead and get into this now. All right. So we're gonna start off with the Jim Crow law. All right. A lot of this stuff we learned back in school. So this is just a re-education. All right. I hate to be a little bit of a rehabilitation.
Okay. It's the fact that you really went with it though. Like, okay. I'm gonna let you have it.
Don't shun me because slavery is now an abomination.
Mm.
Yeah. Bars. All right, no, seriously. All right, so Jim Crow law. All right, we're going to talk about this for a minute. Jim Crow law, a radical segregation and discrimination enforced by laws, customs, and practices in essential, especially the southern states of the U.S. from the end of Reconstruction in 1877 until the mid 20th century. However, the rule of the Jim Crow laws began as early as 1865 following the abolishment of slavery with the 13th Amendment. All right. So if you don't know what the 13th Amendment is, obviously, like I said, it abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime. Up north, there were some Jim Crow like laws. Some states required blacks to own land or property before they could vote. Schools and neighborhoods were also segregated. Some businesses had signs that said white only as well. All right. So, with that being said, here comes the fun part. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right. From what I understood, Jim Crow, the name Jim Crow came from a show back in that time, and I believe it was a white person that was painted black and was given black features like big nose and big lips, and it was like a play or something like that. And I think that's where Jim Crow stemmed from, that like the name. So if I'm wrong, hey, comment down below. Jim Crow was a slang term for black men. It came to any it came to mean any state law passed in the South that established different rules from blacks and whites. Jim Crow laws were based on the theory of white supremacy and were a reaction to Reconstruction and the Depression racked 1890s racism appealed to whites who feared losing their jobs to blacks. Politicians abused black people to win the votes of poor whites. Newspapers fed bias of white readers by playing up, sometimes even making up black crimes. In 1890, in spite of its 16 black members, the Louisiana General Assembly passed a law to prevent black and white people from riding together on railroads. Plessy v. Ferguson, a case challenging the law, reached the U.S. Supreme Court in 1896. Upholding the law, the court said that public facilities for blacks and whites could be separate but equal. Soon throughout the South, they had to separate. 2 years later, the court seemed to seal the fate of black Americans when upheld in Mississippi law designed to deny black men the vote given a green light. Southern states began to limit voting rights to those who owned property or could read well, to those whose grandfathers had been able to vote, to those with good characters, to those who paid poll taxes. In 1896, Louisiana had 130,334 registered black voters. 8 years later, they only had 1,342. 1% could pass the state new laws. Jim Crow laws touch every part of life. In South Carolina, black and white textile workers could not work in the same room, enter through the same door, or gaze out the same window. Many industries wouldn't hire blacks. Many unions passed rules to exclude them. In Richmond, one could not live on the street unless most of the residents were people one could marry. One could not marry someone of a different race. By 1914, Texas had 6 entire towns in which blacks could not live in. Mobile, as I like to call it, instead of mobile, passed the Jim Crow curfew. Blacks could not live in their home, could not leave their homes after 10 p.m. Signs marked whites only or colored hung over doors. Ticket windows and drinking fountains. Georgia had black and white parks. Oklahoma had black and white phone booths. Prisons, hospitals, orphanage, as were colored, as were schools and colleges. In North Carolina, black and white students had to use separate sets of textbooks In Florida, the books couldn't even be stored together. Atlanta courts kept two Bibles, one for black witnesses and one for whites. Virginia told fraternal social groups that black and white members could not address each other as brother.
And it's crazy how they had so many rules, like the simplest thing as getting water. So you telling me I just couldn't get water
You could not get
because
water
I was black?
just because you
Like,
were black. You couldn't get water.
that's
You had to
crazy.
use a separate fountain.
I couldn't
If
imagine living like that.
Yep, if the black fountain didn't work, guess what?
You out of luck.
Struggling. Jim Crow laws did not account for all of the discrimination blacks suffered. Unwritten rules barred blacks from whites jobs in New York and kept them out of white stores in Los Angeles. Humiliation was about the best treatment blacks who broke such rules could hope for. Groups in the Ku Klux Klan, which arrived in 1915, used venom and violence to keep blacks in their place. The Ku Klux Klan, aka KKK, aka Kendra Crystal Crinklesack,
Mm,
hashtag Cleveland Brown Show.
mm.
All right. It was a group that was founded right after the Civil War. It lasted until 1875. The other began in 1950 and 1915 and is continued till this day as we
Yes,
speak.
yes. I was just about to say that. I was about to say I hope he say it's happening now.
Yeah.
That group is still out here. That organization is still here.
Yeah. During the Reconstruction era, local governments as well as National Democratic Party and President Andrew Johnson to help Black Americans move forward. Violence was on the rise, making danger a regular aspect of African American life. Black schools were vandalized and destroyed, and bands of violent white people attacked, torture, and lynching to black citizens in the night. Families were attacked and forced to move all across the South.
Which is so sad because you think that I understand we came from slavery and you put these rules to I guess like make us equal in a way to for the white people to adjust to us because we was in slavery for so long. That's basically was his tactic. He like, okay, well we done been telling these people what to do for so long, now we have to make them equal. So he put this like the segregation in and it's crazy how like they use that to like their advantage where like oh you're black and you really not supposed to be here so we're gonna treat you like
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, we'll get into that too. All right. The most ruthless organization in Jim Crow era was the KKK. Was born in 1865, Pulaski, Tennessee, as a private club for Confederate veterans. They grew into a secret society, terrorizing black communities and seeping white Southern culture, with members at the highest levels of government and the lowest economical and criminal back alleys. All right. So that was that. That's a little bit about the Ku Klux Klan. All right. So I'll say this as well. So we're going to go over the Emancipation Proclamation for a little bit. All right. President Lincoln issued this on January 1st, 1863, approaching the third year of the war. The proclamation declared all persons held as slaves shall be free. All right. So the reason why I said that, and then we'll get back into the Jim Crow. So the reason why I went ahead and did this little part, so you know that before, like while the Civil War was going on, um, it wasn't about slavery. It wasn't about slavery at all. It was about the South wanted to be free from the North. So that's why you have the Confederate flags because they wanted slaves They wanted to do their own thing, and they were like, "Nah, you can't do that." So that's what that's why they were just like all like battling it out and things like that. And then when um Lincoln made the Emancipation Proclamation, that's when the Civil War became about freeing the slaves, and then that's when the 13th Amendment had came about. And then you know how that goes, and you get to June 19th because what was it, Texas, that
Mm.
still had slaves, and nobody knew about that. So yeah. All right, so I'm gonna give y'all this little fact about the Civil War. It was estimated from 752,000 to 851,000 soldiers died during the American Civil War. This figure represents approximately 2% of the of the American population in 1860. The Battle of Gettysburg, one of the bloodiest engagements during the Civil War, resulted in about 7,000 deaths and 51,000 total casualties. All right, so just a little something on that. Give y'all a little history on that too as well. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get back into the news. When did Jim Crow laws end? Do you know? Post World War II era saw an increase in civil rights activities in the African American community, with a focus on ensuring that Black citizens were able to vote. The ushered of the civil rights movement, resulting in the removal of Jim Crow laws. In 1948, President Harry Truman ordered integration in the military. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled Brown versus Board of Education, which we'll go over. The educational segregation was unconstitutional, bringing to an end of an era, separate but equal education. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, which legally ended the segregation that had been institutionalized by Jim Crow laws. And in 1965, the Voting Rights Act halted efforts to keep minorities from voting. The Fair Housing Act in 1968, which held discrimination in renting and selling homes, followed. Jim Crow laws were technically off the books. That was not always guaranteed full integration or adherence to anti racism laws throughout the United States.
But you had some people that hated black people more when those laws were dropped.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it still didn't really change. It just made them harder to like hurt us or do stuff because now we're equal
No,
as
no, no, no,
people.
no. It didn't.
Well, not really,
It didn't
but
make it
like
harder. It just
it's just
it really amplified that.
it amplified it more. You think
Yeah,
so?
definitely. It amplified it a
It
lot more.
probably, but I just say like now. I'm talking about like now, today's time. Now it's like we have a voice in a way to where if someone is racist, we can speak about it. During that time when the laws had just dropped, yeah, it probably amplified because it's like, okay, this is something like I'm looking at their perspective, like this is something new to them. Like they're looking at you gotta look at their perspective. They're looking at us like we were scum. Like, you know? So the
Hmm.
fact that we're considered equal to them was like they couldn't deal with that at the point. Which is so like we all breathe and we bleed the same color, which will makes you think that you're more than me.
In a case that would become one of the most famous, and plaintiff named Oliver Brown filed a class action lawsuit against the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas in 1951 after his daughter Linda Brown was denied entrance to Topeka's all white elementary schools. In his lawsuit, Brown claimed that the schools of black children were not equal to the schools of whites, and the segregation violated the so-called Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which holds that no state can deny any person within its jurisdiction to equal protection of the laws. The case went before the U.S. District Court in Kansas, which agreed that public school segregation had a detrimental effect upon the colored children and contributed to a sense of inferiority, but still upheld the separate but equal doctrine. When Brown's case and four other cases related to school segregations first came before the Supreme Court in 1952, the court combined them into one single case under the name Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka. T. Marshall, the head of the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, served as chief attorney for the plaintiffs. 13 years later, President Lyndon B. Johnson would appoint Marshall as the first black Supreme Court justice.
Talk about it.
At first, the justices were divided on how to rule on school segregation, with Chief Justice Fred M. Benson holding the opinion that the Plessy verdict should stand. But in September 1953, before Brown v. Board of Education was to be heard, Benson died, and President Dwight D. Eisenhower replaced him with Earl Warren, then Governor of California. Displaying considerable political skills on demonstration, the new Chief Justice succeeded in engineering a unanimous verdict against school segregation the following year, and the decision issued on May 17, 1954, Warren wrote that in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal was no place, as segregated schools are inherently unequal. As a result, the court ruled that the plaintiffs were being deprived of equal protection of the laws guaranteed by the 14th Amendment.
Mm.
We could also take a look at what the 14th Amendment did. You know how documents go and such. All right, so the 14th Amendment goes, all persons born or nationalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are all citizens wherein they reside. No state shall make and enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or in minorities of civilians of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within a jurisdiction the equal protection of laws.
For people that didn't understand him, he's basically saying that everyone should have the proper education within that district.
All right, so do you have any final thoughts on the Brown versus Board of Education?
No, not really. I just feel like it's just inspiring to see how far we came though.
Mhm. With that being said, I'm going to move on to a victim. He went by the name of Emmett Till. All right, moment of silence. All right. So, if you don't know who Emmett Till was, he was a 14-year-old boy who was born in Chicago, Illinois, July 25th, 1941, and he tragically passed away on August 28th of 1955. He was abducted and tortured in Mississippi, all because he was accused of offending a white woman, Carolyn Bryant, in her family's grocery store. And this is what and his story is what drew the attention of the insane brutality that was going on during that time to Black Americans. All right, so mm,
I just want to put this in here. If you know Billie Holiday, she had music where it was during that time they were hanging black people, and they were basically, even though she had her little issues, her problems, her music was talking. If you listen to her music, she was explaining what they were doing to us, and to silence her, they kept locking her up. So it just kind of touched me when you said that because, yeah.
Emmett Till, during a summer vacation in 1955, he was visiting his relatives near Money, Mississippi. He was accused of flirting and touching her and whistling at her, and Till's interaction with Bryant perhaps unwillingly violated an unwritten code of the behavior for black men attracting or interacting with a white woman in the Jim Crow era of the South. Several nights after the incident in the store, Bryant's husband Roy and his half brother J.W. Milam, who were armed, went to Till's great uncle's house and abducted Emmett. They took him away and beat him, mutilated him before shooting him in the head and sinking his body in the Tallahatchie River. 3 days later, the boy's mutilated body, and it was bloated as well, was discovered and retrieved from the river. His body was then returned to Chicago, where his mother insisted a public funeral service with an open casket to show what had happened to him. And so, with that, it sparked like a whole movement, and I think I believe they just made a movie.
And it just shows like if it wasn't for these laws and these just these laws put in force, that, to be honest with you, we wouldn't have the respect that we have now, and we barely have that now. It's like it's toleration. They tolerate us. I wouldn't even say respect. They tolerate us.
So,
But I'm just glad they're not as bold as they were before.
oh, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They did drop it. It did come out last year. Wait, what? It's just confusion. Okay, that's the UK. Okay. So in the United States, it came out last year, and it came out in November, so around when Black Panther had dropped as well.
Oh, we need to watch that.
But yeah. Um what was you saying? Because I wasn't paying attention. You said something about respecting and
It's just like now, it's like white people now, I wouldn't say we have the respect that we should have, but at least they're able to, I guess, tolerate it. Like when you think about it, they was bold. They were black people were actually afraid of white people at one point in time. You have to understand that. So I could understand why we had to put on this hard exterior and be outspoken and be who we are, because for so long we were being basically bullied. So it's only right for us, like not only right, but I feel like we should be more educated about the way we do things. But I just feel like that's the main reason why people now are so like raw and up, like, and like just I can't explain it. Like if you get what I mean by that, because when the way you explain it, during that period of time, black people were basically afraid of white people. And not necessarily afraid, they couldn't do anything. Like even if they wanted to, they didn't have a voice like we do now. Like,
yeah. I wouldn't say they were.
but you have to understand though, like
Yeah, I understand.
how it flipped. It has, the tables have turned a little bit. Not saying that they're freedom or none. I'm talking about when it comes to the the respect and the scared level. Like white people are scared of black people now, which I couldn't understand because in the histories you could tell they had the upper hand of us for years. So it's like, how did it flip like that? In my eyes, it's like, how did it flip?
because they've heard stories. So let's say you see a guy that's 6'5", maybe 250, 270, buff as hell. Like you just mind your business. And you see him like walking, like y'all walking down the same street. Well, what's your first reaction?
He big,
You know, like
scary.
mm,
Yeah,
mm. So you're gonna feel intimidated. That's how they feel. They feel intimidated.
but they never felt that like that before until
Yeah,
laws were in
until
place.
yeah, until now. And
Yeah,
I think another reason it has to do with is because of how um black people had to grow up
yeah. Like that's why I
because
said they had to have that hard exterior. They
yeah,
had to
'cause
come off all like
they don't have to, but it was like the way they grew up. Like after everything, like after the Jim Crow laws, and they put us in a different type of environment called the ghetto, which came from the Jews, I believe. So like so they put us in the ghetto, and we were left to fend for ourselves. And it was also kind of a way to try to, you know, kill each other
yeah,
off,
depopulate us.
and
Yeah,
then um, eventually we figured out how to get along, and
they put
we
drugs in place. They put
not even
guns.
that, not even that. There was just a point where we started prospering. Like I forgot where it was that, but it was like a Black Wall Street where they were prospering and everything, and like the white people came and burnt all that shit down to the ground, and so like eventually they recovered and started back again. Then that's when they started putting drugs in place,
Yeah, guns.
and then
Having everybody
abortion,
distractions and stuff like that.
like being able to have abortions. Like, so there's a lot of things that just kind of contributed to our downfall. But so at the same time, it's like you can't keep going with the cycle. You
Yeah,
gotta.
you gotta learn how to move yourself away from that.
This is an article, a small portion of it coming from systemic racism. All right, so the Bureau of Labor Statistics show that 58% of employed Asians work in management, professional, and related occupations, the highest paying major occupational category, compared to 43% of sorry, compared with 43% of employed whites, 35% of employed blacks, and 26% of employed Hispanics. This in part hiring can be explained by racist hiring practices that kept blacks out of businesses for decades under Jim Crow law. It can also be explained by more subliminal forms of prejudice today. One Harvard study shows that when blacks and Asians whiten their resumes, for example, use white or American sounding names, they get more callbacks from corporate interviews. By 25% of black candidates receive callbacks from their whitened resumes, while only 10% get calls when they left their ethnic detail on their resumes. In addition, many companies rely on employees' uh, social networks or referrals or references, whatever, which can be problematic if a company is largely white. Also have a graph that shows the high paying jobs: Asians 58%, whites 43, blacks 35, uh Hispanics 26. And these are like professional management jobs as well. I'll have a picture up as well. And then you have the unemployment rate. Um, for these racial groups as well, but this was like during the pandemic
Mhm.
as well, so you could take a look at that.
How
But
do I feel about it? I feel like yeah, this it's very common now. It's like, and this is speaking from me. I have to change the way I talk when I go like, and I wouldn't say that I change myself. It's just adapting because after you have a certain amount of jobs for so long and you be around people for so long, you realize that the way you act at home, you cannot bring that and expect people to accept you everywhere else. So that way you have to adapt and change, which is sad because I can admit I don't like whiting up myself, but I can't help it when I have to communicate with white people so they won't feel less intimidated. When I talk to them, I have to talk like that. Because if not, they're going to feel intimidated. They're going to be like, oh, she had attitude, send her home. So it's like, it's, I don't agree with it, but I feel like it gives people like you just have to adapt. Like people are like, oh, I just shouldn't have to change myself, but it's not about changing yourself. It's just adapting to the situation. Like, and nowadays that's exactly how it goes. If you don't white up, like it
I,
said,
I don't think it's quote unquote whitening. I think it's more about being professional, knowing how to be proper, how to be respectful. That is completely different
yeah, but
to
like,
that is completely different from being like, "Hey, yo, my guy, you know
yeah,
what's good,
that's
yo,
what I
bro,
said.
da
You
da
have
da
to
da da."
adapt to certain situations. If you're working at Bojangles, then I mean, hey,
I
like, but if
mean,
you're working at a sophisticated place where you have to wear a suit and tie, you have to talk a
yeah, you're
certain type of
being,
way. That it comes with that. You have to. It's like you have to.
I mean, depending. It just really all depends because you could be from Nigeria. I don't know why I chose Nigeria. It's just the first thing to come to mind for some reason. But you could be from somewhere else and know how to be respectful.
Yeah,
The only, I would say, the only thing is right
discrimination.
is like, yeah, it would be discrimination on the accent part, like trying to get your customers to understand what you're saying. So, like, saying like for actors, like a lot of actors that we seen in a crap ton of movies are from the UK and they have accents, but when they're playing these American roles, they have to have an American accent.
Yeah, and you have
Because
to
I
practice
mean,
that.
still to this day, like, what's his name? Edris Arabo, whatever the dude. Like, I didn't know he was from the UK until like last year. Like, I heard him talking to his, I was like, good God, I've been lied to.
Yeah, like some of those people, they like you have UK singers that sing like American
Yeah,
people, and they're from the
yeah,
UK.
yeah, like
So
LMA.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
love her. I ain't even gonna lie, I do love LMA for that because her accent does not fit her voice. So
yeah,
like, yeah.
she got me bent.
I love the way she talks. I'm like, dang, like when you hear her voice and she sings, she do not sound like that. Like you wouldn't hear no UK bone in her body when you
Yeah,
hear her
until she
song.
started talking.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think it's like when it comes to the work place, you do have to be professional as well. So it's not even about quote unquote whiting yourself up. Your resume also has to look a certain way. Not
You
saying it
have
has
to
to
have
be
those
white, but
qualifications. Yeah.
it just needs to look nice, decent at least.
Yeah, I just feel like that you you just have to, like I said, it's about adapting. It's not about changing yourself and changing who you are. It's about adapting to situations. Like
Yeah,
I said, I had a job where I used to work and I used to be able to be myself. But now I have a job where I can still be myself, but I have to be more professional and like more on the professional side about things. I can't do certain things that I would do at a job working at McDonald's or something.
right.
Like,
You can't just like cuss
yeah, like I
here and there.
can't.
You got to choose your words carefully.
Yeah, so I have to express things different ways, and especially I have more white people around me. I have to talk a different way. Not saying that I have to whiten my voice up. It's just that okay. I have to
Hi,
be
how
more.
are you? How you
Yeah,
doing today?
I have
You
to be
having a
more.
good day?
Hey, how are you today? Do you
Oh,
need anything from my office?
oh,
You know,
oh.
like I can't be like, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Are you gonna talk to me? No, that's what I'm saying. Like it has to be. You have to have a different approach when you're talking. And to be honest with you, when you're talking to white people, you have to have a different approach. I'm just letting you know. If not, they're gonna always find you intimidating. That's just the truth. They're gonna always find you intimidating if you basically think that you're about to get a job with an attitude. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, you got to be nice. You got to have a smile on your face. You be like, hey, why should we hire you? You be like this right here.
Not the smell.
I
It is crazy because we stay doing that.
know, right?
The smell.
Who's we?
Us black people. Like
Oh, I
me,
don't.
I do. I smell and interview and I'm talking to people. I smell, you guys. I smell a lot.
Nah, the best thing you should do, keep eye contact.
Yeah.
Be
Be
confident.
confident. Yes, be confident. Do not like show any like just be very confident in yourself. And then they're gonna be like,
Yeah,
okay, she knows, like she's very confident.
yeah.
That's gonna be noted.
And watch your body language. Like
Yes.
I understand you get nervous. Nervousness is normal. Also, at the same time, show a little bit of personality. Laugh a little bit, whatever your weakness is. If they ask you what your weakness is, just be like, man, I don't know. Or if you know, but like kind of like downplay it a little bit, but also have a smile about it.
But just show a little bit of, who you are. Like don't be too colorful. That's what they be saying. Don't be too colorful with it, you guys. Like I'm
What you
not
mean by that?
look at you trying to put me in a hot seat. I'm just saying because we have some people that are just like I said, their selves and in certain type of situations, if you're applying for Burger King or Bojangles, by any means, be yourself.
Doesn't matter where you're from. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern. Um,
And then for people that like other than black people, I don't wanna put us in a hot seat for so much. I wanna go ahead and say this. As far as Spanish people or Asian people, the only thing they have to worry about is actually I wanna say like their the way they talk, like understanding them. I feel like understanding them, like make sure people can understand you. Basically, that's what I'm saying. Like if you having those high jobs, why you ducking? It's him ducking for me. It's the truth though.
I don't
Like
know her.
I'm just saying, like
I don't
if
know
you want
her.
a job like that, if you're not having a bilingual job where you're just talking Spanish or you're talking for both, just make sure people can understand you that speak English. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Like some people, I'm being really honest. I be on the phone with people when I'm going through something with my bank or something, and there's sometimes if they're either I want to. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not discrediting. I'm not saying it's African people too. You cannot understand them. They're like their language. If you're gonna have broken English, it needs to be more a little bit more understandable.
Trying to get us canceled before we get somewhere.
I'm just saying. It just need to be a little bit more understandable. Like that's all I'm saying. There's sometimes people cannot understand people that have a different language. It was you hiding though. You don't have nothing to say. I'm sorry, cause it's you. You got me crying and laughing.
Alrighty, guys. Um,
You go in the show like that.
so with that being said, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, do all those fun things. You lost your privileges for today's episode. You lost your privileges for today's episode. All right. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell so you know when we post every Wednesday, Thursday,
and
Friday.
Saturdays.
Why are you talking? You like you Roy? It was that funny you started crying? God dang.
Cause you really gonna do me like that?
Young.
Like, for real. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell.
Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, reaction videos on Sundays, Sorry, on Saturdays, not Sundays. All right, do all that good stuff.
If you don't, you're lame.
No. You did it wrong. And if you don't do it, you a chump.
I was not thinking of it.
And if you're not there, you a square. This ain't no rehearsal.
If me keep coming back, not saying nothing.
I think she confused. That's why I put her in a funnel. Sometimes I get hungry and I eat the cake. Oh, I'm sorry. Pause. I'm not talking about that booty, but I like a cupcake. I get thirsty and I take that cup and I make it a milkshake.
No. You gotta go, you guys.
All right.
Yeah, make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. We'll be posting this week.
Or next week.
Or
Maybe the week after. No, I'm just
you
kidding.
never know.
But yeah, do all the good stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, share it. Shit.
Hey.
Hit that bell too. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
It ain't easy, no, it ain't easy, it ain't easy, no, it ain't easy. People dying, guns, they always firing, never old enough to be retired. Talk through the wire, my mind is never quiet. Thoughts always racing, how could I face it? Standing on the edge when I face depression. Demons coming out, hit me with limitations.